tell about that? Do you want that at the interview? How do you want to see that? Do you want a link to that?
Yeah, so that would be the kind of thing that you would present after the phone interview. If you are invited on site for an in-person interview, you can send that information to the recruiter if you have it as a link. However you said, I've had people come in with actual printed work, but that's certainly very helpful and can be quite impressive to the managers if they can see concretely what you've done.
So a separate Google Drive or a free Dropbox folder where you have that, and then you can provide the URL for the link. So Shannon, if she's hiring you for MIS, you could see your project, a presentation you did in class, anything. So be saving electronic copies so you can document
Absolutely.
what you've done.
Yep.
I know the School of Education does that. They do a lot of teacher practice and prep work. So we're slowly moving into that in business. We haven't done that so much, but sometimes people don't believe you that you can actually do this. And when you say, look at this PowerPoint slide, my team and I made 100 in strategy or something.
Absolutely. Yep. Yep.
Other questions about the phone interview?
And then if all goes well in the phone interview, again, you would be invited on site to interview if you're local. We have people come to our main offices. Typically for first round interviews, you may meet with 2 to 3 hiring managers.
At the same time?
Yeah. I mean, usually I like to prep my candidates and let them know, you're going to meet with this person, and then you're going to move to the next conference room and then meet another couple of people. And you can certainly ask for that information if the recruiter doesn't provide that for you. Just say, hey, how many people and who am I meeting with? Just so you're prepared and you're not overwhelmed when you walk in the door if there's 5 people staring at you.
So they need extra copies of their resume and their portfolio?
It's good to have. I mean, typically, of course, we share everything electronically internally, but if you have never come empty-handed. I would bring that portfolio. What is that you gave that?
We're calling it a pad folio.
Pad folio.
Here, I'll show you the beautiful document here. So.
Yes, I would definitely advise bringing that and make sure you have a couple of working pens.
Some business cards, a pen, and I've got some Dalton
resumes,
so.
And then you can have your
questions.
Yes, your questions written down ahead of time.
I stick my car key in there too. I don't want to take a purse, a briefcase. I don't want a bunch of stuff, especially if I'm schlepping from office to office. So this is usually my go-to.
Yep, absolutely. So then once you're on site, sometimes you go through 2 rounds of interviews depending upon the position you're going for. Often entry-level positions, they'll make decisions after that first on-site interview. You should hear, typically we'll give you expectations as far as when you'll hear back from us. But if the recruiter doesn't offer that, you can always ask that as one of your follow-up questions. It doesn't hurt to send a note just reiterating your interest, and you can just do that via email. It doesn't have to be anything crazy, but just a couple words. And then if you want to follow up maybe a week later, some of these things take a long time, so.
Be patient.
Yeah. Yeah.
Would you not consider somebody who, I guess, was energetic about the job and wanted to know if they had gotten it, with that, you know what I mean?
Will you repeat that question just so we pick this up?
Would I?
Like if you had gone through the interviews and a week had gone by and I hadn't heard anything and I wanted to know and I called you or tried to get in contact with you, would you be like, I've heard before that you should do that they can?
So your question is, should you? Is it bad to follow up like a week later? No. One follow-up call or email was fine. If you start blowing up my phone, then that's not good. But yeah, certainly after a week, just to reiterate your interest and ask for an update is certainly is within acceptable limits.
At what point would she become a pest?
I guess the ones that email me like every other day, or ever get a call every other day from the same person.
One of the things, and we'll talk to you about this in some of the upcoming slides, is we recommend you keep a spreadsheet of everybody you interviewed with, when you contacted, and put an event in Outlook. Okay, so I contacted Shannon on the 1st, I can contact her again on the 8th as a reminder, so you don't drive her crazy or
Yeah.
too crazy.
Well, if you're, depending on how many you're interviewing for, yeah.
Right, but you know, a lot of these folks will send out a lot of
Sure.
emails via Monster or Chattanooga Has Jobs, some of these job sites, so we like to keep up with them a little bit.
Good to track, yes.
All right, we kick it old school here and also make them send you a thank you note
Oh,
written.
okay. We
Like
don't get
it,
a lot of those. It's not really necessary.
Would they stand out?
Not necessarily.
Not necessarily.
Sorry.
We're still doing it.
Yeah.
Don't give me those looks. We think it's good.
Yeah.
I think a lot of that's generational though.
It may be. So it depends, I guess, on who the hiring manager is. But
Their age, yeah.
we've moved to everything is all digital. We operate pretty much paperlessly. So that's kind of just our mode of communication at this point. But some managers still appreciate that extra touch.
I guess
so.
sort of judge the age. If they look at the last half of 50, you might want to go ahead and send that.
Can't
out and
hurt.
thank
Yeah,
you
it's
note.
not going to be a bad thing.
Smaller companies, yeah.
Oh, yeah, yes, maybe a smaller company, absolutely.
Now's your chance.
Any other questions?
What other questions before we let Jonathan tell a little bit about his internship experience?
Do the seller expectations on the application actually play any role in the offer if you do get the job?
Keep that just.
Okay, you were asking, do the salary expectations that you list on the application play into what you're actually going to get as an offer?
Yes, ma'am, because there's always like, you don't want to lowball it.
Yeah.
You don't want to go too high
Scary,
either,
yeah.
so-
Sure. Yeah, that's a tough one. With entry-level positions, for the most part, the salary is what it is. We bring everybody in at a similar range. We want to make sure that we're paying equitably. So for entry-level, just general business, maybe, we're looking at starting in the 40s. I mean, it can't hurt to put something like that in. But also list that you're negotiable. You don't want to price yourself out depending on what the role is as well. For the higher level positions, then, there's more negotiation. So,
Do you have students look on Glassdoor or some of those other
Yeah.
department sites?
yeah, some are accurate, some are not. But it can't hurt to put it out there. As long as you're within the ballpark, I wouldn't not call somebody based on what they put on there.
We have a professor on a search committee for a position on campus, and a couple of people's salary expectation was about 3 times what it's going for, and they really just tossed those resumes
Yes.
aside, knowing that we couldn't, so
Why waste time?
why waste time?
Yep.
So, but if the person really didn't know and would take a lower salary, they've
Yeah.
disadvantaged themselves.
Yes. So you really want to do a little research, like if you want to go check online just to get a ballpark. But again, entry level, depending on your specialty, 30 to 50.
All right, Shannon's going to come back when we do our practice networking.
Yep.
But you've got some materials. Want to tell what you brought today?
So yeah, if anyone's interested, I've got just some basic information on Unum and the positions we offer. This is just some of our marketing material that we hand out at the job fairs that hopefully you guys will be attending. I think there's an internship fair.
There is. There is.
Okay.
You'll be back down here.
Yes,
for
I'll be
that?
down
Okay.
for that,
That's
so-
one of your options to attend.
So if you're really interested in internship, that would be something to attend. And this just kind of gives some basic info about us and our company, and kind of course gives you the apply here on the website. So if anybody's interested in picking up one of these, definitely go ahead.
Does Unum do tuition reimbursement for grad school?
After 1 year of employment, Unum does provide tuition reimbursement, correct? Yep.
All right, other questions for Ms. Shannon? Yes.
With the internship, is it just like call center, insurance broker, or is it just wherever they need to?
Yeah, so it's across the board. So we have people who are, working with Jonathan in the claims organization, doing that entry-level work. We do have positions in finance, accounting, HR, so all of the corporate functions you can think of, underwriting. typically, I think they just post it as general internship, and then based on your major or any kind of experience you have, they may gear you toward interviewing for a specific area based on your background. So, yeah, it's not just call center.
All right, let's thank Shannon for coming today.
Thank you.
I'm gonna walk her out so she can do the carpool run. We're gonna hand off to Jonathan.
I can
And
get
Jonathan's gonna tell you, why don't you tell this from a student perspective? We wanna know what you're doing in your internship, but your perspective of the job.
So I guess some of the main points starting off, I know she did mention that when you fill out the application, you want to apply early. And I definitely mean you really want to apply early. I applied, I think, about 2 months prior. And even then, I felt like it was not early enough. There's some positions, for example, like the PDP program, it's a professional development program that they have there. They also have another one related more towards finance. That if you apply early on, you can actually go into that program that would allow you to go to different areas within the company. So definitely apply early, check the website, weekly or monthly, however you would like to do that. Now, as far as like the application process goes, from my point of view, I know when I applied, one of the biggest things was when I was filling out those questions, I didn't put it into a Word document. Next thing you know, when I tried to submit it, the page reloaded and all my stuff was gone. So definitely make a Word document and have everything saved on there. Now, after that step, if you do end up going on to the next section to get the additional questions, where it asks you about why you want to work for Unum.
What'd you say? What'd you say?
Pretty much have a Word document with all your answers in it before you submit it for the first round, and definitely for the second round. Because you don't want none of that stuff erasing and then wasting 30 minutes of your time or an hour of your time to have to do it all over again. And then maybe you reward it a different way that you had it rewarded prior. So once you get to the second part of the questionnaire and you're answering your questions, you want to make sure that you're being as detailed as possible for why you want to be there, what are some reasons or examples that you may have. Because some of those questions may be, talk to me about a time when you made a mistake. How did you provide a solution? How did you provide a solution for the customer at that time? Or talk to me about a time that you succeeded, or talk to me about a time that you worked in a group project. What was your role? So you want to make sure you have very specific answers for those, because the more specific you are, it shows more detail as to how they can see what it is that you're thinking exactly. That's how I felt when I was doing it.
What if we're a student and we don't have much work experience? Would you say use something from their volunteer experience or
Yeah, definitely.
class team project, worked with a bad group member?
And I know, I had work experience, but I know, although I did have work experience prior,
What did you do?
I worked at Mohawk as an international sales assistant before then. So I did that. I know I also did the international exchange student program here, and then also had a project management class. So I actually did bring that class up, and I talked about how I was a project leader in it, and I talked about my role and how I delegated work out, and what our result was at the end, and how we were able to actually succeed. And I think I was like the second group in that class to get a higher grade. So I do bring those points up. You do want to bring out the things that really matter or have more of a
Passion for you.
yeah, because you want to really show that you put effort into this project, you put effort into this specific task, and you want to go from there. So definitely you can always use anything you've done in school. As far as volunteer work, I know Unum specifically, they really love volunteering. I'm constantly getting emails every week about, hey, come go to the Boys and Girls Club. Hey, go to the United Way that we have up here.
We're doing this semester.
Yeah, and it's
So,
great.
Yeah.
I know I did it here as well, and it really helped out. I know I was able to actually use that during my interview, and it really did end up helping because it showed that I want to take an initiative to help my community, and that's something they actually value at Unum, so it's really good to have.
Chris is going to make a video, where are you, Chris? There you are, of our experience at the Boys and Girls Club. So that'll be something else you can put on your collateral and your e-portfolio to share of what you're up to.
Yeah, definitely. Anything you do, it doesn't just have to be work experience. It can be anything you do in school or outside of school. All those things matter. As long as you actually bring it forward, be detailed about it. Don't just be vague, be detailed. So as far as like the second part in the process where you're answering those second set of questions. Just have everything write it in a Word document, save it for later, because when you actually...
Go back and edit it a bit.
Yeah, because when you get that phone interview, after you submit those second set or the first set of questions, you wouldn't have your answers listed with the actual question. Because when that phone interview comes around, they might ask you the same exact question. They just want to hear how you'll say it, over the phone. And you can,
Say the same thing.
yeah, I mean, most times
So
you can just
print
go
those
back.
out, yeah.
Yeah, so it's always good to have. You definitely want to have questions for them on the phone and for the in-person interview. As far as the phone conversation goes, definitely have a copy of your resume so you don't forget what it is that you did 3 years ago when you were working or what you did.
It's hard to remember.
Yeah,
it is really
especially when you're on the spot. Make sure you're in a quiet area. I unfortunately had gotten out of class, didn't have enough time to go home. I had my interview in my car, and it was the worst because you would hear cars pass by. So definitely, as a piece of advice, have an interview in a quiet area where there's no outside noise coming in, because the last thing you want them to ask you on the phone, what's that in the background? You don't want to, yeah, you don't want to take the
And
attention
take
away.
the speaker off the phone. Sometimes when you're listening, it's hard to hear.
Yeah.
So talk directly through the phone, so you don't have that background noise.
Definitely.
What do you like about Unum?
Honestly, I really like the culture there. Although the work, because I work in short-term disability, although it can be a little bit tough, the culture itself is fantastic. As far as the things that they offer there for work-life balance, it's great. I never...
Example, what are the perks? Things we can't ask Shannon during the interview, we can ask Jonathan. So what
Well,
are
I mean,
the perks?
I know, first of all, when I was in the interview process, one of the things they brought up is that I would have about 21 days of PTO off the bat.
Paid time off.
Yeah.
Ooh, okay.
So that for
Pretty
me was always good.
21 days, okay.
And it's relatively easy to actually ask for time off, so long as you're caught up in your work, which isn't really that hard once you get into things, especially out of training. You can ask time off just a week in advance, if anything.
Can you work from home?
Yeah, you can work from home after your first year. You do have to, and depending on the position as well. I know for short-term disability, after the first year, once you become a full-on specialist, you do have the option to work from home. You can work from home full-time, or you can just work like 3 days at home, 2 days at the office. I know they're working on a project where they're trying to transition people to work from home and from the office a couple of days here and there.
Commuting, that wouldn't be bad. Now, you started as an intern.
Actually, I was a direct hire.
You were a director.
Yeah, into the position. As far as the internships go, though, I was in a training class with interns that were there prior, and one of the things that they informed me about is while you're in the internship program, you essentially get to do some of the easier claims as far as short-term disability goes. That helps you actually transition into the actual role when you're handling a little bit more complex claims. So it does give you a little bit of an edge above everybody else who's in that training class who might not even have the experience to begin with. So it definitely does help. And I know, as Shannon mentioned, there's internships for other things. I know there was another student who was previously here who also graduated with me. He was in the auditing department, and I know he ended up going to accounting later on. So I mean, it's not just disability. But there's
Starting salary range, was she right?
yeah, it's definitely. I know when I looked for it, I was looking more at multiple companies with short-term disability, and then I would just look to see what the pay range was on Glassdoor or some other websites. I know Indeed sometimes had them on there, and then I just kind of gauge from
Labor
there.
is another good one to look at.
Yeah, I personally didn't want to gauge too high because I didn't want to get kicked out. It's like, yeah, we can't pay this guy. So I try to go for somewhere in the middle or a little bit above the middle, and then if they went down, it was just maybe $2,000 or $3,000 down.
So you're happy?
Yeah, I'm definitely happy. And yeah, definitely, as far as the perks and everything go, they're great. The biggest thing I can tell you guys is the in-person interview. When you have that interview, have questions. The biggest thing I learned compared to some of my other peers who got hired on, they all had something that was all pretty much consistent across the board, that everybody made the interviews actually answer their questions and keep a conversation going. You want to keep them interested, because the last thing you want is to just sit there, have a one-sided conversation, and then that's it.
They're bored to tears.
Yeah, so try to keep them entertained, talk back and forth, give them some examples, if there's a joke in there somewhere. I mean, nothing major, but just something, oh, this happened while I was doing the process or whatever. It helps. I just know that's one of the things I did in my interview. I just kept the interviewers engaged with me throughout the whole interview process. And then at the very end, I still asked a couple of questions as we were walking out, just to show that I still had a little bit of interest in the company, or still had interest in the company. And yeah, I felt like that really did give me the edge at the end. I did end up sending an email about 7 days later asking Shannon, because it was a Friday, and I had no response back. But yeah.
We are so proud of Jonathan. Let's give him a hand for coming to talk to you. I know we're up against time, but maybe Jonathan will stand at the door and pass his card or email if you have more specific questions. But this is exactly what I want from you in the future. Smart, sharp, well-paid, happy alumni coming back to pay it forward. We appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you. All right, guys. See you in a week. Bye.